The Bad Guys 2 movie novelization. Chapter 12. Unless I'm mistaken, Wolf said to Mr. Moon, continuing with his oil tycoon charade, rockets do need oil. How would you feel about a strategic partnership? You're coming to me with a business proposal right before my wedding? You're a real operator, Mr. Wolford, Mr. Moon said, grinning at his new chum. Wolf grinned back. You don't know the half of it. Moon reached out to shake Wolf's hand to seal the deal, and just like that, his watch was within reach. But before they could shake on it, Wolf spotted someone over Mr. Moon's shoulder, someone he very much did not want to see. Mr. Solomon, the billionaire from their long-ago Cairo heist. Stunned, Wolf's hand dropped, leaving Mr. Moon hanging. Mr. Wolford, Mr. Moon said. Wolf said, still glancing nervously at Mr. Solomon. Wolf? Webbs asked, knowing their time was just about up. What are you doing? Wolf! Kitty Cat screamed through her comm unit when she saw that he'd missed his chance. Get the watch! Just then, Mr. Moon noticed Mr. Solomon coming their way and retracted his hand. Wolf's chance to nab the watch and make his move was gone. Finito. Over. There's my Moon Man, Mr. Solomon said loudly. There's my Solly Wolly, Mr. Moon replied. You're looking bald. And you're looking short, Solomon retorted. He glanced at Wolf, his eyes narrowing. Wait. Have we met before? Wolf stammered. No. I guess I just have one of those faces. Anyway, Mr. Moon. Ah, Mr. Solomon snapped. We were in the same a cappella group at university. Of course. Wolf shook his head. Now that certainly wasn't me. He turned again to Mr. Moon, eager to continue the conversation that had been going so well before Mr. Solomon had arrived. Now about that oil. Did you take a pottery class in Sydney? Mr. Solomon interrupted. Sir, a guard said, stepping forward to touch Mr. Moon's arm, it's time. Mr. Moon turned and said, Ah, yes, showtime. Security guards whisked Mr. Moon away up the stairs to get ready for the wedding ceremony. Wolf stared after him, frustrated about his lost chance. Kitty Cat was equally angry. She was watching her plan fall apart, helpless inside the limo. Enough was enough. She slammed down her headset, grabbed a disguise, and headed into the mansion to do what Wolf hadn't been able to do. Wait, Wolf called after Mr. Moon as he headed for the stairs. Can I just... Mr. Moon! No, Habibi, Mr. Solomon said to Wolf, trying again to place him. Listen, I never forget a face. Naked high diving. Was it it? Just then, Kitty Cat sidled up beside Wolf in her own disguise. Oh, hi, yes, can I borrow him for just a moment? Kitty Cat crooned. Thank you kindly. She dragged Wolf out of the room and tossed him inside the bridal suite, where they could speak freely. She got right up into his face and screamed, You blew the heist! That guy, Wolf began to explain, I knew him. He was going to recognize me. Just as he said that, Shark burst into the room carrying a zonked-out bride. We got a slight problem, he wailed, still wearing his Marco the Caterer disguise. Someone needs to tell Marco that a shark ate him, the bride said, her head wobbling around as she tried to lift it up. What? Wolf asked, confused. Are you guys trying to sabotage this? Kitty asked. Suddenly, the wedding officiant burst into the room and sang out, Who's ready to get married? Freaking out! Shark kicked the officiant and sent him flying through the wall. Shark! Wolf called out, horrified. Shark threw his fins in the air. I'm a panicker! This is all too much! You happy? I like this one, the bride said, pointing at Shark. Kitty spun to glare at Wolf. This whole thing's a bust. You lost your edge and now the governor's going to pay for it. Whoa, Kitty, Wolf said calmly, trying to soothe her. Let's not do anything crazy, okay? We'll get you the watch. Oh, yeah? Kitty Cat demanded. How? The beginning of a smile crept across Wolf's face, and his eye had that familiar glint. It was obvious to every one of the bad guys. Mr. Wolf had an idea. Chapter 13. The wedding was about to begin as planned, but the heist was about to take a dramatic turn. As the guests watched the grand entrance of the veiled bride, Wolf tried to resist itching his nose. But it was hard, since the bridal veil was uncomfortable. It's like a freaking fairy tale, Webb said, watching from her spot behind the monitor inside the security room. Honey, you look so beautiful in this dress, Mr. Moon said to Wolf, who he'd mistaken for his blushing bride. thanks to the artfully placed veil. Piranha was planted as security within the wedding ceremony audience. He glanced over at Mr. Solomon, who was busy Googling Buck Wolford on his cell phone. No results. Next, he Googled Big Bad Oil. Same thing. But Google popped up an alternate suggestion. Did you mean Big Bad Wolf? Mr. Solomon's eyebrow lifted in a question. Back in the bridal suite, Kitty Cat was charged with keeping an eye on the real bride. The poor girl was still woozy and out of it from the accidental dart gun hit, so really they were doing her a favor by having Wolf go on in her place. It's not like she was in any condition to walk down the aisle. "Shark, you're up," Kitty Cat said into her comm. Shark was ready to fill in for the wedding officiant. He stepped behind the podium and cleared his throat, setting a keyboard in front of himself to punctuate his every word with an accompanying song. "Welcome!" Shark called out. "Welcome to this most beautiful, majesticular, incredominous occasion. Woo!" Could he be a little more subtle? Kitty groaned into her comm unit. Piranha whispered back, "For Shark, this is subtle." Shark continued to ramble, using his theatrical skills to drone on and on with a made-up wedding ceremony, all while the team continued to put their heist in motion. "Give it to me real good! Now, we stand here today to marry this man, this manly, masculine, manliestly maleful man." He turned to the bride and added, "And this totally normal woman, in this sacronymous bonds of holy matrimony." Woo! Out in the audience, Mr. Solomon suddenly got a good look at Wolf's silhouette peeking out from beneath the bridal veil. He rubbed his eyes, certain he was seeing things. Either that, or his mind was playing tricks on him. Could it be Mr. Wolf? Meanwhile, spotting his window, Piranha headed toward Mr. Solomon and got ready for his next move. "Now," Shark said, gesturing to the bride and groom, "would you please join hands?" Mr. Moon extended his hand with the watch, and Wolf grinned behind the veil. He reached forward to join hands, but in the next instant his claws burst through the tips of his white glove. Mr. Solomon's eyes went wide. He'd remember those claws forever. Those were the very same paws that stole his beloved car. "It's him!" he muttered under his breath as the realization hit. "That's him!" Wolf reached for Mr. Moon's watch, just as Shark said, "Yep, just join those hands." Piranha crept closer to Mr. Solomon in the audience as Shark continued, "No need to look at him." Come on," Wolf whispered nervously. "Just blindly join those hands together," Shark called out loudly. Mr. Solomon suddenly jumped to his feet and screamed, "I object!" "What?" Mr. Moon said as Wolf fainted at the front of the crowd. Moon wrapped his arms gently around his bride and placed Wolf gently on the ground. "Honey bunny!" Then he turned to Mr. Solomon. A bright spotlight shone straight out at the audience, momentarily blinding him. Mr. Moon's security team stepped forward, ready to make their move. But Mr. Moon stopped them and told them to stand down. They stepped back out of the way and watched. "Moon," Mr. Solomon said urgently, "look at what you're marrying. It's none other than the Big Bad Wolf." A murmur went through the crowd. All eyes were on Mr. Solomon as he stormed forward, ready to prove his hunch. He stepped up onto the altar and dramatically lifted the veil, and underneath was the real bride. "Here comes the bride," she said woozily. "Boop!" Mr. Solomon gasped. How could it be? He had been so sure. What kind of trick were the bad guys up to now? No, but how? "Solly Wally!" Mr. Moon shouted. "This is a disgrace! Get him out of here now!" "He was here!" Mr. Solomon insisted as the security guards swarmed him, dragging a stunned and flustered Mr. Solomon away as Mr. Moon turned back to the altar. "Where are you taking me? There are witnesses. We all saw it!" Mr. Solomon wailed as the guards hauled him away. Where's the officiant? Mr. Moon said, looking around in confusion. Where Shark had been just a moment before, now there was only a fluttering sash. The bride grinned up at Mr. Moon and said, Who cares? She swooned forward and gave him a big kiss. Definitely top 5 bad guys heist ever, Pigtail whooped as their limo squealed through the gates of Mr. Moon's mansion a few minutes later. When big men say I object, I almost make pee-pee accident, said quietly. Almost. The team popped a bottle of champagne to celebrate as Wolf put the pedal to the metal in only his cowboy hat and a pair of underwear. Kitty Cat grinned down at the watch nestled safely on her wrist. I gotta ask, Wolf, how did you know that was gonna work? Wolf grinned. The way they'd come up with all those pieces on the fly like that, it felt like he was back in his element. You see, Kitty, he explained. 3 parts to every con. He continued explaining that by getting webs to intercept Mr. Solomon's cell signal, they'd be able to get Mr. Solomon to put his finger on Wolf. Once he had started to figure out who Wolf was, Piranha had snuck up behind him and whispered in his ear. He'd convinced Mr. Solomon to object to the wedding. Since he was a person Mr. Moon had always trusted, the groom would be forced to listen, at least for a little while. Long enough for the perfect distraction heist. But none of it works without the payoff. He continued explaining how when he fainted, Wolf had fallen right into Mr. Moon's arms. And bada bing, bada boom, swapped the real watch for a fake at that very moment when things were in chaos. Pigtail messed with the spotlights from inside the data room in order to blind Mr. Solomon at the critical moment, while Shark slipped out of character and away from the altar at the precise moment. Finally, Doom flew over the altar holding Snake in her claws at the perfect moment. Snake swiped the dress up and off Mr. Wolf. Wolf grabbed his best bud's tail and then Snake dropped the dress right back down over the dazed bride, while Doom whisked the other 2 off to safety. What could have gone wrong? Everything, but nothing had gone wrong because they were the bad guys. The art of misdirection, Wolf noted as he replayed the whole scene in his head, only slightly surprised that they'd actually pulled their heist off. It's not the action, Kitty mused appreciatively. It's the distraction. Got it. He slipped his sunglasses over his eyes and ran his hand along the limo's steering wheel, showing off the watch that was now on his arm. Hey, Kitty Cat snapped. She grabbed it off him and returned it to her own wrist. All right, I see you. Wolf smirked at Kitty Cat and revved the engine to continue their getaway. Chapter 14. Marmalade loved games. All kinds of games, but especially mind games, con games, and Connect 4. Marmalade said, positioning a yellow Connect 4 chip over a slot. He withdrew it and reconsidered his next move. No, not there, no. Maybe, so many options. Diane tapped her foot impatiently. This is not what she'd come to prison to do. She'd come for information, for answers, for a lead. And instead, she'd been stuck playing games with a pumped-up guinea pig while the guys were still floating in hot water. Oh my goodness, she snapped. Can we move this along? Patience, Diane, Marmalade cooed. This is a game of subtle strategy and psychological endurance, mastered only by the most cunning and sophisticated minds. Diane read the back of the box. Ages 5 and up. Besides, Marmalade continued, ignoring her passive-aggressive jab, it's not every day that the governor drops by to chat about quantum ferromagnetism. Quantum? Diane furrowed her brow. Wait, are you saying MacGuffinite is magnetic? Marmalade waggled his eyebrows. Not just a magnet. MacGuffinite is the atomic inverse of gold. Exposed to extreme voltage, Diane suddenly began to understand what he was saying. It will cause gold electrons to decouple and attract with spectacular force. It's a gold magnet! Marmalade giggled. Oh, she's catching on. Very good. Why rob a bank when you can make the gold come to you? Diane nodded appreciatively. She'd had her own life of crime, disguised, as she was, for so many years as the Crimson Paw, and she knew how appealing a gold magnet must be to a hungry criminal. All the crime, she said slowly. None of the exercise. She stood up and turned to leave. Oh, okay, thanks, Professor. Whoa, 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 Marmalade protested, gesturing to their Connect 4 board. You can't go. We haven't finished our... Suddenly, he noticed that Diane had already won in 3 different places. What? He gasped. No, but how? It's literally tic-tac-toe, Diane said, rolling her eyes. Then she winked at him and added, Send me your yearbook. Just as she was about to step out of the cell, Marmalade called after her. You know, it's funny. You're the second person to come all the way here to ask me about MacGuffinite. What are the odds? Diane stopped short and spun around. You had a visitor? I didn't get her name, Marmalade said silkily, but apparently we have a friend in common. Or should I say 5? He laughed maniacally as Diane grabbed her briefcase and rushed out, racing to the security console at the front gate. Madam Governor, the guard asked as Diane came racing up. I need footage of Marmalade's last visitor, Diane said hurriedly. Now! This was the new best day of my life, Pigtail said sadly as the group celebrated a successful mission around a bonfire near the old hangar. Why must you leave forever? Webbs nudged her and said, cheer up, Buttersnout. Pigtail gasped. Buttersnout, did you just make me nickname? Webb shrugged. I guess. I always want a nickname, Pigtail gushed. Suddenly, Pigtail pulled them all in for a hug. It was clear to everyone she loved being part of their group. Across the fire, Snake was carefully roasting marshmallows to share with Doom. His eyes were full of stars as he passed a perfectly roasted one to her, gently blowing on it first so she wouldn't burn her beak. Hey, listen, Doom said quietly. No hard feelings about the whole, pretend relationship to entrap you and your buddies, okay? Snake shrugged it off. Oh, come on. Of course not. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't, really that into you. Doom grinned. She could spot a liar from a mile away. Oh, really? Yep, Snake said casually. 'Cause you seem pretty into me, Doom taunted. Well, that's, Snake giggled, knowing he'd been caught. Yeah, Doom said. Snake added, I didn't want to hurt your feelings. So, sorry if you're disappointed. Disappointed? I'd only be disappointed if I was into you, which, as previously established, I wasn't, Doom replied. Snake grinned. Otherwise, this marshmallow toast would be full of romantic tension. While the others celebrated their win with some downtime, Kitty Cat and Wolf were hard at work inside the hangar. Wolf noticed the watch on Kitty Cat's wrist. So, you're saying impersonating the bride was your idea? He asked incredulously. Absolutely, Kitty said, carefully melting down the MacGuffinite on the belt of Guadalamango. Yeah, okay, Wolf said dryly. I hired you, Kitty Cat clarified, therefore your ideas are my ideas. Classy, Wolf said, then nodded at her project. What's going on with the MacGuffinite? Just a little science project, she explained. So you framed us for science? Come on, Kitty argued. I had to frame you. It was the only way to draw you out of retirement. Anyway, you got what you wanted, so, Wolf began. Oh, all right, Kitty said, nodding. You want the video. She dug through her pockets and pulled out a USB drive. There we go. But just as Wolf was about to grab it, she pulled it back and continued to talk. Did I ever tell you about my first heist? Wolf shook his head. No. Was it a bank? Jewelry store? What was it? Lollipop, Kitty said, pulling the lollipop out of her mouth to admire it. Back in school, the teacher used to give the good kids a lollipop. Maybe it was my claws or my teeth, but she never, ever looked my way. Hurtful. So one day when that old fart wasn't looking, I snuck into the drawer and swiped the whole bag. After that, when the kids wanted lollipops, they came to me. Dude, it was amazing, man. For the first time in my life, I felt powerful. I must have pulled off 100 jobs since then. Cars, cash, all that MacGuffinite. The more you steal, the more they respect you. She took another lick off her lollipop and glanced at Wolf. Why would you give that up? Wolf glanced at her warily, unsure of where she was going with her little speech. Kitty Cat continued. You think if you play nice and follow their rules, they'll just... She batted her eyes and tried to look innocent. See you for who you truly are? She rolled her eyes and went on. But let me tell you, they won't. Wolf, what if the bad life was your best life? Wolf considered this. Kitty Cat shrugged and finished up by saying, My advice? Stop hoping and enjoy the lollipop. Wolf stepped out of the hangar and moved to join his pals around the fire. As he made his way toward them, he could see that the fire was smoldering and Pigtail was now snoring softly in the warm glow. He turned and headed for the hot dog truck instead. Inside the truck, his friends had been waiting anxiously for him to arrive. Did you get it? Wolf asked them. Oh, we got it, Webb said, pressing play on her surveillance monitor. They'd caught Kitty Cat's full confession on a hidden camera. I can't believe she didn't notice the camera, Piranha said, giggling. Wolf plucked the hidden camera out of the cowboy hat he'd been wearing ever since the heist. Webb said, All we need to do now is get this to the chief and clear our names. All right, Snake cheered. We did it, Shark said happily. We did it. Woohoo, Webbs added. Touchdown dance, Shark said. Suddenly, the bad guys all realized Wolf wasn't cheering with them. Hey, buddy, Snake said, nudging him. You okay? Huh? Wolf said, letting his eyes focus on his best bud. Oh, nothing. Just imagining my next round of thrilling job interviews. Wolfie, Webbs warned, this is the plan. Yeah, I know. It's just that our lives before were kinda... Wolf began. Sucky? Piranha finished for him. Well, Wolf shrugged. That's a strong word, but today was, not sucky? Piranha finished for him again. Yeah, Wolf sighed. I'm just saying. What am I saying? I'm just saying, what if we took a wrong turn with the whole good thing? You know what I mean? There was a long pause while they all let this sink in. Finally, Snake spoke up. Yeah, but it's gonna be different this time. Captured the Phantom Bandit, Webb said, imagining the headlines. That'll look great on your resume. We're gonna be heroes, Piranha agreed. Piranha Street. Yeah, no, Wolf said, resigned. Being bad was like a magnet trying to pull him back towards some truly amazing times. What am I talking about? You're right. Come on. Let's find the chief. He turned the key in the ignition. Let's go. That's my Wolf, Shark cheered. The truck's motor churned, then sputtered out. Wolf turned the key again, but it just chugged and died, time and again. Uh-oh, Wolf whispered. If the truck didn't start, they were stuck. Stuck with Kitty Cat while she moved forward with her nefarious plan to steal the Moon X rocket the next morning. Stuck as bad guys, even if they hadn't chosen to be part of the plan. Wolf tried to turn the key one more time, and that's when Kitty Cat, Pigtail, and Doom stepped into the light of the Wienermobile's headlights. Proudly holding up a pair of spark plugs that she'd stripped off the van, they'd been outsmarted by a cat. Kitty Cat smirked and said, Did you really think it was going to be that easy? Chapter 15. Diane emerged onto the roof of the prison, holding high-tech goggles up to her eyes. Though rain was crashing down around her, she hardly felt it, because she was a woman on a mission to find Kitty Cat. Using the goggles, she could triangulate Kitty Cat's whereabouts thanks to a CCTV screenshot they'd pulled up on the prison system. She'd scanned the sky, then her face split into a relieved smile. Found you, she said quietly. She pressed a button on her briefcase, instantly turning into a jetpack. Then she leapt up and rocketed away into the sky. She'd find Kitty Cat and take care of this problem, no matter what it was going to take. Inside the abandoned hangar, the guys were now feeling a lot less confident. With the sun just creeping over the horizon, the day of Kitty Cat's Moon X rocket theft had officially arrived. And the guys were definitely not in a position to stop her. Are these gold? Webbs asked as Doom and Pigtail fastened handcuffs onto their wrists, fins, and torsos. Kitty Cat looked up from her workstation where she was wiring the massive MacGuffinite magnet prototype. She didn't answer, just kept up her work while the guys were sealed into their cuffs. Kitty, Wolf said calmly, can we talk about this for a second? Nope, Kitty Cat replied. Is that MacGuffinite? Wolf asked, looking at the sphere Kitty Cat was working on. Kitty Cat smirked back at him. How about I show you? Just as she said that, she clicked a button on a remote in her hand. The small MacGuffinite sphere began to hum and glow as electricity coursed around it. "Ooh, shiny," Piranha said. Gold objects from around the room began to sail through the air toward the magnet. As the force of the magnet's pull grew stronger, the guys felt their golden cuffs began to tug, and suddenly they were all lifted up and into the air. Clang, clang, clang! One by one, they were pinned to the glowing sphere, held prisoner by their gold handcuffs and the pull of the MacGuffinite. "A gold magnet?" Snake exclaimed. "You bet your scaly butt it is, and this is just a prototype," Kitty Cat explained. "Wait till you see what it can do in zero gravity." "You're going to space?" Wolf said, realizing just a little too late what she had planned. "Obviously," Doom noted. "What do you think this giant rock is for?" Pigtail giggled. "It's not for science fair." Kitty Cat shrugged. "You can't expect us to steal all the world's gold from down here. The biggest heist in history, courtesy of us." She took a bow. "All the world's gold?" Webb said, alarmed. "Oh," Kitty Cat said, "and the cherry on top." She pulled out her laptop and plugged in the USB drive with Diane's video. "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Wolf said angrily. "What are you doing? The video! You don't need to ruin Diane. Come on! Let's talk about this." "Thing is," Kitty Cat said, considering, "I promised this rodent that I would. Kind of like a quid pro quo type thing." "Marmalade!" Wolf gasped, realizing their old nemesis was somehow in on this plan. "I know what a goofball," Kitty Cat purred, "but a real whiz with science stuff." She looked at Wolf and said, "I tell you what, 'cause we're friends, I'm going to give you a choice." Kitty Cat released her finger off the magnet controller she'd been fiddling with earlier. As soon as she did, the guys' cuffs were all freed from the magnet and they fell down from their temporary prison. The upload progress bar was moving quickly toward complete. Soon it would be on the internet for all the world to see. Wolf charged toward the laptop, yelling, "Stop it!" Kitty Cat flashed him a quick smile. "You can stop it with this." She tossed the magnet controller to Wolf. As soon as he pressed it, the video upload paused, but the guys were immediately sucked back up to the MacGuffinite magnet. "The upload is paired to the magnet," Kitty Cat explained. "The moment you turn it off, the video goes viral. Or you can leave it on. Protect Diane, but y'all keep dangling there until the police arrive." "The police?" Shark whimpered. Doom took out her phone and made a quick call. After a single ring, the police chief picked up. "Commissioner speaking." "Yes, ma'am. I got a hot tip," Doom said. "The bad guys are holed up in a hangar 2 clicks north of the MoonX launch site." Doom hung up, then turned to Snake. "Sorry, doll. Look, it's nothing personal." Snake gazed lovingly at her. "You're so hot right now." "Snake!" Wolf scolded. "Yeah?" Snake asked. "You're one twisted reptile," Doom said, smirking. "Wish I could stick around to see how it ends," Kitty Cat said casually with a quick wave. "But we've got a rocket to steal. Ciao!" As the girls exited the hangar, leaving the guys dangling from the giant magnet that held them prisoner, Wolf resorted to begging. "Kitty Cat, wait! Hold on a second, please!" But it was useless. The 3 girls piled into the hot dog van and set out, barreling off toward the MoonX rocket base. Wolf and crew were sitting ducks stuck to a magnet with golden cuffs, waiting for the cops to show up and read them their rights. The fact was, they wouldn't have many rights by the time this was all over. "See?" Shark said miserably. "This is why I'm not a cat person." "How are we supposed to choose?" Webb said, looking from her cuffs to the video, upload and back again. "We're not," Wolf said. He suddenly had an idea. "I don't give up that easily. Piranha!" "Yeah?" Piranha replied. "I need you to pull out that USB," Wolf said. "You got it, papito," Piranha said. "Follow my lead." 1, Wolf began to count. 2, 3. Using momentum, they were able to swing the magnet across the room until they were dangling close to the laptop. As soon as they were in position, Wolf pushed the button that released them from the magnet, and Piranha launched into the air. But their aim was off, and instead of hitting the laptop, Piranha hit the wall instead. He shook his head, trying to knock away the dizziness that came with the smack against the hangar's wall. Then he rushed over to the computer and grabbed the USB. I got it, Piranha called triumphantly, pulling the drive out of the laptop. But the countdown clock for the video upload continued, even without the drive in the computer. Guys? Not good, Snake noted. New plan, Wolf said quickly. Regroup. Wolf released the button and the guys all shot straight back to the magnet, where they dangled like golden ornaments on a Christmas tree. Webbs, you got enough wiggle in those legs to hack in? Webb shrugged. 3 legs is all I need, I think. Alright, let's go. The guys swung the magnet across the room, then Wolf pushed the button to release the magnet once more. As soon as she was free, Webbs raced over to the laptop and typed furiously to try to stop the video from uploading. While she worked, the upload continued, quickly creeping closer and closer to 100% complete. When it reached 98%, Webbs hollered out, "Wolf, Wolf, I can't get it! Fall back, fall back!" She then felt herself jolted backward toward the magnet again. As soon as he released the button, the upload paused, but it was starting to look like there was nothing they could do to stop it permanently. Wolf stared around the hangar, searching for something, anything that might help them. Think, 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 he urged himself quietly. Come on, you got this. What are we doing here? Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he spotted something across the room. The forge! He screamed out. The rest of the guys jolted, startled by his outburst. Huh? Piranha muttered. The what? We're gonna throw the whole thing into the fire, Wolf told his buddies. It's our last chance. Wolf used his body weight to try to swing the magnet back toward the laptop again. Reluctantly, the other guys joined in and threw their weight into the task too. It wasn't a foolproof plan, but it was a plan, and trying something was better than doing nothing. They were sitting ducks, waiting for the cops to come and pluck them from the scene of the crime. You got this, buddy, Snake told Wolf encouragingly. Here we go, Wolf said, then pressed the button one last time. The guys were released from their magnetic prison and they all came crashing down to the floor. Wolf quickly grabbed the laptop and threw it toward the fiery forge, but his aim was off and it missed the target. The laptop clattered to the ground instead. Seconds later, the screen flashed over to show the words, "Upload 100% complete." And the next second, the screen flipped to a YouTube page that was titled, Crimson Governor Foxington's Secret Life Revealed. The view count sat at 0, but as they watched it, it rapidly increased as dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of people began to watch the video of Diane as the Crimson Paw. No, Wolf said, hanging his head sadly. Diane's life was ruined, and it was all their fault. Oh, Diane. Just when he thought it couldn't get any worse, a police siren chirped from outside the hangar. The telltale sound of a helicopter came next. Then more cars, more sirens and screeching tires. Finally, the chief burst through the hangar doors and yelled, "Well, well, well! We meet again. Not so tough without your hot dog truck, are you, Wolf?" Chapter 16. At the same time the guys were being greeted by their friend the chief, the girls stepped off the elevator at the Moon X launch tower and took in the view that greeted them. The rocket was bigger and much more majestic than they had even imagined. "Wow," Doom said admiringly. "This is getting real," Pigtail said. "Morning, ladies," said a smooth voice from above them. The girls all looked up to see who else was in the rocket launch room with them. Kitty Cat and her crew gasped when they saw who it was and where she was. "Madam Governor," Kitty Cat said, startled to find the Crimson Paw herself sitting on a rafter, one leg casually dangling from the spot where she was perched, 200 feet above the ground. "Oh yeah," Doom said, scratching her head. "Foxenstein, right?" "Close enough," Diane muttered. Diane leapt down from the rafter onto the bridge, putting herself directly between the girls and the rocket. "What are you doing here?" Pigtail asked. "You know," Diane began, slowly removing and folding her jacket as she spoke. "I'm very hands-on, especially when someone tries to frame my friends. I know everything," she said with a cool smile. "The MacGuffinite, the magnet." "You talked Marmalade," Kitty Cat said. "Actually, he did most of the talking," Diane told them. "Now, are you all going to come quietly?" Diane struck a pose, ready to whip out some of her signature kung fu moves if they didn't plan to come quietly. Pigtail stepped forward, blocking the other two from harm. "Step aside before anger becomes punch," she warned. Pigtail glanced over her shoulder at Kitty Cat, who gave her a subtle nod. With her boss's approval, Pigtail attacked. But with just a few swift, carefully practiced, and perfected moves, Diane took Pigtail down. Next, Doom took her turn by lunging at the governor with her feather blade. But she, too, was no match for Diane. "Ready?" Diane asked, lifting an eyebrow at Kitty Cat as she dragged Pigtails and Doom's briefcases toward herself. Kitty Cat fought hard, but stood no chance against Diane. Within moments, Diane had Kitty Cat's briefcase too, and more importantly, she also had Mr. Moon's watch. "You're all under arrest. Governor's orders." Kitty Cat chuckled from her spot on the ground. "Governor's orders? Didn't you hear? You're not governor anymore." "You might want to check your phone," Doom added. "Crimson Paw?" Pigtail taunted. Diane pulled out her phone and discovered dozens of urgent alerts splashed across her home screen. The blood drained from her face as she looked from one to the next, each becoming more and more worrisome. "No, no, 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 no! How?" Just then, a tranquilizer dart hit her in the shoulder. Diane looked up and saw Doom holding the same dart gun that Kitty Cat had used on Wolf's nose the previous day. As the wave of exhaustion washed over her, Diane lost her footing, dropped to her knees, and passed out. Pigtail giggled as she got to her feet. "They never expect the dart." "Shall we?" Kitty Cat said, gesturing toward the rocket. She picked up her briefcase, returned the watch to her own wrist, then headed for the rocket's door, which slid open to welcome them. From her woozy spot on the walkway, Diane could see them entering the rocket, and she knew she had to do something. Ugh, Kitty Cat. Using her last ounce of strength, Diane dragged herself into the rocket and stowed away, strapping herself in for safety before collapsing under a final, powerful wave of sleep. Chapter 17.
A viral video has revealed that the notorious thief known as the Crimson Paw was none other than Governor Diane Foxington.
Tiffany Fluffett said, reporting live from outside the hangar where the bad guys were currently under arrest.
While police search for the rogue politician, they have wasted no time in ordering the speedy release of sweet, adorable Professor Marmalade.
A mugshot of Marmalade flashed on screen to remind viewers who he was, though most everyone knew who he was already. Tiffany regrouped, then continued in a somber tone.
Unlike the bad guys, whose claim to have changed fooled absolutely no one.
The footage switched to a shot of the guys handcuffed outside the hangar being marched toward a paddy wagon. "Chief!" Wolf called out. "We were set up by a gang of super criminals. They turned the MacGuffinite into a gold magnet," Shark added. "And they're stealing that rocket to take it to space," Webb said, gesturing toward the Moon X rocket launch site. Yeah, the chief said, waving them off. "That's what they all say." As the cops pushed them into the back of the paddy wagon, Wolf tried one last time to plead their innocence. Chief, I know it looks bad, but if we did this, why would we help you solve the case? Why would we tell you about the MacGuffinite? And where's the loot? It doesn't add up." He took a breath, waiting to let those facts sink in. "Look, I know we don't have proof, but I know somewhere in that big booming heart of yours, you know we didn't do this." The chief sidled up to Wolf and looked him straight in the eyes. Wolf turned on the charm. "Chief, please." "How many times do I have to tell you, Wolf?" The chief spat. "It's Commissioner." She slammed the door of the paddy wagon, sealing the guys inside. Outside the old abandoned hangar, the police chief gleefully hopped into the driver's seat of the paddy wagon and drove off with her newly captured prisoners. She hummed as she drove the bad guys back toward jail. In the back of the van, the guys were shackled and miserable. They'd gone from being trapped by a magnet to now being trapped in the back of a police van. How much worse could this day get? They were innocent, but no one would believe them. And now Diane was under attack too because of the video they failed to keep off the internet. Suddenly, the chief began to have some doubts. Wolf had made a valid point. Why would the bad guys have helped her solve the case if they were to blame? She shoved her foot down on the brake, and the van slammed to a stop. The guys went flying, fist over fins over paws, as they tumbled around in the back of the police vehicle. As soon as the paddy wagon came to a complete stop, the back doors flew open. "Chief!" Wolf gasped, seeing who'd opened the door. Her arms were crossed, but her face held a question. Okay, let's say hypothetically, I believe you. Which I don't. But if I did, and some super criminal has a gold magnet, how would we stop them? Wolf's mouth hung open, unable to believe what she was saying. You believe us? No, the chief protested. No. As she released their shackles and untied them, Webb said, I want to give her a hug. The guys rushed the chief and drew her in for a huge, squishy group hug. Everyone's tails, fins, and tummies were wagging at the same time. It felt so good to be good. Ooh, I like the chief, Shark said happily. Chief, Piranha asked, is that a new shampoo? Okay, the chief spat, resigned to admit that she'd been wrong about them all along. Please stop with the touching. The guys all backed away, relieved to have finally convinced her of their change of heart. I don't get you guys. You're good, then you're bad, then you're sort of good, then really bad. It's hard to keep up. Wolf grinned and said, Yeah, that's fair. I get it. We're all over the place. But we need to get us to that rocket before it takes off. Rocket? The chief looked at them, her face painted with confusion. What are you talking about? Okay, friends, hopefully you really enjoyed this book. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.